Yeah, this is where Sam.
Welcome to Baseball and Coffee with Tino and Aaron, guest Matt Whitlock and Doug Jastro. We are going to talk about the first half of the season, go over awards, some surprises on our end, and then predict some award winners for the end of the year. How y'all doing?
Not bad.
Good,
Hey.
good. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's Aaron's birthday, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Happy birthday, Aaron.
Thank you.
For sure. What's the park in the background?
PNC. It's the last Major League Park I was at. Definitely at the top of the list, along with Dodger Stadium, is my favorite parks I've been able to see in person.
Awesome.
But I got a really cool thing for my birthday. I think I posted it on our league thread. Laura got me this scratch off poster that you scratch off every park that you've been to, kind of as a keepsake and tally. So I won't be scratching anymore out this year, but it was a pretty cool keepsake. It was a really thoughtful gift, and I'm looking forward to
They should have a spring training scratch off.
For sure.
Get credit for this year.
Do you guys have Matt and Doug? Do you have favorite parks, and then the one park that you kind of dream of visiting?
Well, I was in DC from 2000 to 2005, and I love Camden Yards. Camden Yards just it was one of the first kind of retro old school stadiums. And I just love it. It had a cool atmosphere. And that was before I always used to go in left field because you could get decent price tickets and be in the first couple of rows there and left and catch a home run. You can't do it so much anymore because they moved it back.
Right.
But so there, and I still haven't been to Wrigley. I've been to Fenway, I've been to Yankee Stadium, but still haven't been to Wrigley.
Wrigley from a fan experience, Wrigley is hands down for me my absolute favorite park. From the food walking up to the park to the amount of beers that are acceptable to drink to just the rowdiness of the group, Wrigley is the best. I've been lucky enough to go to most of the parks on my list. The one park I haven't been to, surprisingly, is Dodger Stadium, and that's the one that I think is probably at the top of my list. I love, I still call it Pac Bell. I love San Francisco Stadium. I think that's probably the most beautiful. But Dodger Stadium is probably at the top of my bucket list. Doug?
I mean, it's clearly at the bottom of everyone's list of best parks, but for me, I can drive down and get on a random BART station. If it's a weeknight game or if it's a weekend game, and just get off at the Coliseum BART station, and you can just walk up there, and no one's at the game, and it's just kind of a A's fans with that whole reverse boycott. I didn't go to that, but that was like, I don't think a lot of fan bases could have pulled off something like that. And so that's kind of like, A's fans are pretty awesome. I like the atmosphere of A's games, and the fact that it's just super accessible. And that's kind of my favorite. If I had a chance, going to Pac Bell or going to the Coliseum, baseball experience, I enjoy seeing an A's game better, even though that you're only there with 3,000 to 4,000 other people, and that's kind of weird too. But anyway, I went to Boston one time, and the Red Sox were out of town, so we did the tour of Fenway, and that was awesome. You got to go behind the Green Monster, you got to go in the dugout, you got to go in the 406 Club, which is that was Ted Williams' average on. Yeah. They have a replica of the Cheers bar in that club there, so that just I just fantasized about being like a high-end Red Sox fan, and that place is like a palace. I'd love to see a game there, but I haven't done that yet.
I remember
I went there before the curse. And so that was really fun because we had to separate. There were four of us, and we had to separate and get individual tickets and sit throughout Fenway. And I was sitting next to somebody who was a season ticket holder. By the fifth inning, he was already drunk, and talking about the curse. And he was telling me how many generations have died in the seat that I was sitting in. who haven't seen the Red Sox win. So when the Red Sox finally won, I thought about that dude.
That's filthy. I did go to some games in Oakland. I used to go down to the Bay just to go hang out when I was younger. And one memory I have of Oakland is getting off the BART and walking over the Sky Bridge thing.
Yeah.
And I remember there were multiple people selling hot dogs, and they were cooking them in a turkey pan with sterno underneath. That's how they were keeping them warm. Right. And then they were also selling beer, which was obviously illegal and you're not supposed to do. But I was like, this is amazing. I get this, the hot dog was great. You can't really screw hot dogs up, right? So I was getting a hot dog that was kept warm over camped sterno in a turkey pan and a Bud Light as I'm walking up to the game. It was $4 or something like that. It was awesome. It was super awesome. All right, so we should take a quick break and come right back. We'll start with the MVP races, both AL and NL. We'll be right back. All right, y'all, let's start with the American League MVP race. So far this season, are we all in agreement that the AL MVP is Shohei Ohtani? Anybody disagree?
No.
I don't disagree. I mean, but I do think the best team in the league has been Tampa, and I think the Orioles as well. So I think we were just talking offline. I think Rosarina and Franco are kind of going to split, maybe could get split votes, but I think Franco batting second and playing shortstop, I think he should be considered. And I also think Adley and Baltimore, that team continues. I mean, if it wasn't for Tampa's early run in the record they have, Baltimore could easily be in first place, and I think what's considered the most competitive division. So what he does offensively and defensively, I had a conversation with Matt the day that Glasnow pitched against them. I haven't watched a ton of the Orioles, but they're really patient with Tyler and seem to be looking for certain pitches. And he made the point to me that Adley really sets the tone for that, and it was impressive to see the approach up and down the lineup against my bias, influence, but I think a really good pitcher. So anyway, I think those guys deserve mention, but you're not going to get an argument out of me to say that Ohtani doesn't deserve it.
Do you guys take team context into consideration? If you had an actual AL MVP vote, would team context matter to you, Matt?
A little bit, yeah. I think it's going to matter when we get to AL Cy Young, which is a big shocker. But yeah, I think it does matter. But also, I think the contribution to the team, though, and I think Ohtani is just a one-time, all-time player, playing both ways and playing it at elite level. I do wish Tino and I had this conversation. I do wish they would open their outfield a little more and move and open up the offense a little more, and providing some of those outfielders to play DH and moving Ohtani to first every once in a while. I think that would add to his overall WAR. It's not a complaint, but team.
Right.
I think real briefly, Tony, for me, it does. I think winning. It's hard for me to separate winning from an MVP consideration.
Yeah, but this is like for me, with my generation, this is like Andre Dawson on the Cubs winning the MVP. It's just it defies context what's going on right now with this guy. So it's great to look at. I've been watching a lot of Red Sox games, a lot of Yankees games, and it's just amazing to see that they're pretty much, it feels like that they're out of it. The Rays are just kind of they're dominant in that AL East, so they're a fun team to watch. But yeah, I think that talking about AL MVP, we're just talking about the more interesting thing is who's going to come in second.
Right.
And watching in game is huge too. So that game he pitched against G-Rod, it was quite early where they both got rocked early, and the person that rocked G-Rod and basically knocked him out was Ohtani himself.
Right.
Bringing run support. He hit that over the stands in right field in Baltimore. But just to see how a single player could support his own pitching when he was having an off day was incredible.
I guess for me, team context would not impact me as an MVP voter. I think baseball is such an individualized sport that the best player in the sport is, yes, they're going to have an impact on their teams winning and losing, but you can't blame Ohtani for the Angels not being in contention, right? And so to me, that's not really, even if the stats were even with a contender, I don't know if that's a separator for me. Whereas like in basketball, there's only 5 guys on the court and they have to work in sync with one another in order to win the game. And so to me, because it's such an individualized sport, I don't necessarily dock players for playing on losing teams. It's like Felix Hernandez winning the Cy Young. He should have won the Cy Young, right? He earned that. And, the team was shit, but the reality is I think he was still the most valuable pitcher that year. I did a first, second, and third. I don't know if the rest of you guys did. I've got Wander Franco second. I think it's pretty outrageous what he's doing with the bat and being rated as pretty much the best defensive shortstop in the American League right now, at least by some metrics. To me, that's pretty incredible. The other thing with him is 24 stolen bases. I did not expect that from him at all.
Yeah.
And then third for me is Aaron Judge. I just think it's hard I think we get, what's the word? We get used to his stats. We come to expect him to have better stats than everyone else. And I don't think that's necessarily fair. Obviously, he's not going to be there in the end because of his injury, but he was third for me.
Yeah. Wander Franco, though.
Go ahead.
Wander Franco's got a -6 on the teammate meter, though, apparently.
Don't get these two started on that, man. We'll never
Kevin Cash is a jerk.
I was just gonna say, I think
you could refuse to put a uniform on because LGBTQ plus and not get benched, but then get benched for being one of the top WAR players in baseball.
I think when you push his behavior through the Tampa Bay Rays filter, that comes out for me as probably a net zero, just because it's hard to determine, I think, with that particular team, in all seriousness, how they're judging him, right? Through what value system are they judging his behavior? And I think, Matt, you say it tongue in cheek, but I kind of am in agreement with you that I don't know that I care that he destroyed whatever he destroyed, and B, is that really truly worse than refusing to wear an LGBTQ or a pride color on your uniform one night? I know you're wearing a Rays hat. I get it. Screw the Rays, though. For me, I have a hard time. I have a hard time with them. And one more question. Do you guys see Ohtani as the AL MVP at the end of the year? Do you think that there's anyone or anything that can stop him from winning the AL MVP?
Yeah, I hope he gets traded to the Dodgers and he wins the National League MVP.
And then do you guys think I know this is a can of worms and this isn't on the rundown, but is he staying in Anaheim next year?
No,
not a chance.
We were talking about this yesterday. Seattle.
Is that where you think he's going? Is that wishful thinking?
Oh, that's total wishful thinking.
Where do you think he's going?
I don't know. It's tough to say. Yeah, it's tough to lay out right now. I think it is what makes Seattle interesting is their lack of spending this year. They're going to make a run for it.
Yep.
So yeah, who knows? And who knows with him? I don't think I think he's such a unique player. I think it's going to be hard to predict what his choice ultimately is going to be too.
Right. Is there a team? So actually, for all of us, what team would you like to see him go to? What team would you hate to see him go to? And where do you think he's actually going to go?
Huh. I'll jump in if you don't mind. Yeah. I just because I'm feeling this, that I feel like that I'm like a Trump supporter and I'm on like CNN right now. And people are kind of going like, is Trump going to go to jail? And I'm just like, what are you talking about? He's not going to jail. Like, for me, this is a slam dunk. Like it's the Dodgers. I mean, it's the perfect fit. It's the West Coast. I mean, they've got the money, they've got the need on this. It feels like that. Yeah, it's a done deal, and the only reason why we're not talking about it's a done deal in that it's more fun to kind of talk about and speculate where he might go. The Yankees might try to get him, and all this other stuff. But anyway, it seems about as preordained as him winning the AL MVP is that he's going to sign with the Dodgers in the offseason. So I'll just put that out there.
What about you, Aaron?
I'm not gonna be right, so I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna say the Orioles. He's gonna set up camp down I-83, right down the 45 minutes from me, so I can go watch him 15 times a year.
That's
And
funny.
he's gonna have the best catcher in baseball catching him, and yeah, that works for me.
That's
Let
funny.
let the mountain close out his games.
See,
And that
I would hate
those new park dimensions sounds great to me.
I would hate to see him on the Yankees because, and I know the Yankees will be a contender for him, just because I'd be forced to not like him anymore, or he would just kind of become a part of what is it, the Transformers or one of those where all the individual ones come together to be one big like
That's Voltron.
Voltron. So it's like the Yankees are like Voltron, and everyone becomes kind of faceless almost, right? As a part of this Yankee like behemoth. And I don't want to see him become a part of a behemoth. I want to see him maintain his individuality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Mariners are the team I would love to see him go to, just because I think it would keep him on the West Coast. It would keep him in a prime, I think, market for Asia. And I think Ichiro has proved that the marketing opportunities from Seattle can rival those from LA. And this is going to be, I think, a bit against the grain to say, but I actually think he's going to stay an Angel. And I say that because I think that there's comfort in being there. And I think that he's a very loyal teammate. And I think the Angels are just smart enough and just stupid enough to do just enough to keep him there. Things like bringing Zach Neto up, things like bringing Ben Joyce up, I think those are all geared towards showing Shohei that there's a sense of urgency. And I think his relationship with Mike Trout and the talent of Mike Trout is something that we don't talk about, right? He's playing side by side with another top 5 player. So I think
I don't think he's a top 5 player anymore. Go ahead.
Mike Trout, I think, but whether he is or the perception is that he is, I think the perception is more important than the reality when it comes to this conversation, right? And so I think he strikes me as a player who he's not into moving from team to team, right? And so if the Angels can make a compelling enough argument and offer the same amount of money as someone else, I do think that there is a high likelihood that he stays. Again, I know that that's against the grain, but I think that there's a big argument for that, right? And if you're not one who's interested as much in the unknown and you're accomplishing already where you're at, I look at like Giannis, right? If you're a basketball fan, Giannis Antetokounmpo stayed in Milwaukee and he re-signed with Milwaukee and won a championship in Milwaukee and was very loyal to that organization. And they both strike me as players who have, I guess, a little different set of values than what we commonly associate with modern day athletes. But we'll see. That's my gut. But we'll see what happens.
Hey, we need to Aaron and Matt in that order. Where you said where you want him to go, where do you think he eventually will go?
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, I mean, there was a poll in the Athletic, and most of the players think he's going to LA, the Dodgers. I guess I say that as well, because like there just seems to be a lot of smoke around that.
Good.
So,
Trump going to prison in the next 2 years? What do you think about that?
Oh, hopefully.
I'm gonna wager. I'll put myself on the spot here. I'll say Seattle and Seattle.
Oh wow! So you think he is going to Seattle?
I think he's coming here. Yeah.
Interesting. You know what? He would really be kind of splitting the difference if he did that, because Seattle has, I believe Seattle will match whatever the biggest bid is. They have their highest revenue team or profiting team in Major League Baseball last season, and have saved up money, have all the marketing, all the big machine that can push him. And it's a team. Imagine Shohei being on a team with the kind of pitching the Mariners already have, right? I think if you did that and you said, you know what, Julio's our Mike Trout. We have 10 times the pitching the Angels do. We have all the other resources the Angels do, and we're a better organization top to bottom, right? And we can offer you the same amount of money as anyone else can.
Yeah, and then there's incentive on their end too. They're going to sell out game after game after game if Ohtani comes here.
Well, they said that Ichiro could have signed, when they re-signed him, that he could have signed for virtually any amount of realistic money, and the Mariners would have made that back and some because of the marketing opportunities with having Ichiro on the team. So we'll see. I think it's going to be incredibly fascinating. I really do hope the Mariners jump in on this. But like I said, I think he's staying in Anaheim. NL MVP. Do you guys have a top one or top three?
I have something similar to the Ohtani signing thing, where the one I hope versus the one I know.
Okay, so the one
Acuna is obviously the one I know, and that's the one I put my money on. What a comeback he's had from his knee. He's just all categories, right? From hitting to speed, ultimately to his defense and right field. What did he throw 104 miles an hour out of right field the other day?
Flat-footed, basically.
Yeah, he's just the top player in the league, no doubt about it. The dark horse, just because I think it goes back to Freddie Lynn, is just wanting to see a rookie of the year also win MVP, and he gets those chance in Arizona, would be Carroll, but that's my complete bias. But I think Acuna by the end is going to easily win it.
Yeah.
You or Doug?
Yeah, Tino, I remember that we were doing some off-season trade offers back and forth with some high-end players on that. And I remember that you were asking about Yordan Alvarez from me, and I said, "Oh yeah, that's fine. Let's do it straight up for Acuna." And you were just going, and you were very pleasant, very professional, and said, "You know what? I actually value Acuna over Yordan." I remember at the time I went, "Wow, that's." I didn't think that, and looking back on that now, I'm a little bit embarrassed on that whole exchange. I did not see that coming at all with the with the stolen base numbers on top of the power, on top of that crazy average. He's hitting lead off for the Braves. Even if you took his numbers away and you just said, what fantasy player spot would you want? You would want the leadoff hitter for the Atlanta Braves, like number one on that, and he's got that spot nailed down. He'll never give it up. And so, yeah, that's a nice player to have in fantasy baseball, man. Good job holding on to him. Not taking my Yordan straight up deal.
I would say though that from a just a pure hitting talent standpoint, I think they're equals. The differentiator for me is the speed, obviously, with Acuna. I think that Alvarez probably has more power and is at least his equal from a hit tool standpoint. But it's just the stolen bases, I think, with Acuna that have really put him over the top. What about you, Aaron?
Yeah, not great content. I'm in complete agreement. I have nothing else to add. Acuna was, I think, clearing away for me. I don't really have a compelling case to make any for anybody else.
So 328, 403, 558 slug. Surprising to me is the 12.9% K rate, which is incredibly low for a player who swings as hard as he does. 16 homers, 66 runs, 47 RBIs, and 34 steals already, which is crazy. He could be, I think 30-70 is actually within reach, which is just insane to think about. Carroll's my number two. Carroll, surprisingly, is actually really close with outside of the stolen bases and a little bit of average. They're actually pretty neck and neck. Same amount of homers, similar runs and RBIs. Carroll has 23 steals, and he's hitting 295, but I think it's realistic to expect him to end at 300 or 310. The difference is Carroll, for me at least visually, you watch Carroll and he's like basically a really in shape version of my size, right? And so to see him do what he does is really cool. I love it too because he went to Lakeside, so he's a Seattle kid, and that he's that he's Japanese American, which is super, super cool as well. I don't know, I root for that. I also have Freddie Freeman third. I did a 1 through 3 for each one. I think Freeman's year so far, 14 homers, 61 runs, 10 steals, hitting 316 is pretty insane. And then
the steals is a shock.
From Freeman, I know. Well, yes. I'll look up and I'll look at a box score and I'm like, damn, Freddie Freeman had another steal.
Yeah.
You know, it is pretty
He's
crazy.
Like a Judge last year. Judge was throwing down steals last year.
Totally. The other shout outs for me, and I have these guys in my top 3 end of season, are Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. I think they are, if you can be quiet superstars, I think both of those guys are doing it. Soto's walk rate is 21.1%, which is just insane. People question his passive approach, but he's got a 937 OPS right now and 14 home runs. And then Tatis coming back. I don't even think he's back for real yet. And he's always up there. Yeah. Any other National League guys you guys want to point out?
Oh, wait, I got a question though. I think this might be an interesting question. Sure. If you had first pick in a brand new fantasy league right now, would you go Acuna or would you go Carroll with your? I'm thinking that those would be like the top 2 picks.
Dynasty,
who would you pick first?
Dynasty, hybrid, or redraft?
Oh my God, no, Dynasty.
Who would be your first big dynasty?
Yeah,
Matt, go ahead. And go first.
That's a tough one. Acuna is 24. Carroll's doing this at 22. But I don't know. I would go. Even though my heart's with Carroll, if I was being logical, I would go, and reasonable, I would go Acuna.
Acuna right 25.
25.
What about you, Aaron?
I'll keep Ohtani.
I would go Julio. I think Julio's upside is greater than both Acuna and Carroll. He's got more power, and he's got the same amount of functional speed as those guys do. I also think the organization as a whole is on a greater upswing, and so I think I'll have more runs and RBI opportunities down the road. And that's I would be as objective as possible in saying that.
I would say I would go Carroll just because looking at me objectively, I would go with my gut and go with my feelings as opposed to the reasonable decision. But yeah.
It's a great question, Doug. And then we all gave you players that are current players, so you got a great.
I think Julio out of the 3 is the youngest, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? Let's see. Carroll is 22 years, 10 months. Julio is 22 years, 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is insane to think about. I don't think of those players in that way, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Hopefully Julio can turn it around, man. I'm rooting for him.
He already has. I just had this conversation with Matt. He already has, and the perception is that he hasn't, and he's going to end up 30-30, and everyone's going to say he had a shitty year. He has, Julio has, so we're 45% of the way through the season, and he has 13 home runs, 17 steals, 46 runs, and 41 RBIs. So he's on pace for like 28 home runs, 35 steals, 100 runs, and like 90 RBIs. So he could be 100, 30, 30, like if he just was like this much better than he has been so far this season. So I push back because I think the expectations of him were that he was going to be like 50-50 or something like that. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what the national media is pushing, that he's struggling or that he's a bust or he's not as talented as we thought he was. And I'm like, dude's going to go 30-30 with like 100. And we're going to say it was a bad season. And he's 22 freaking years old. Makes me nuts. Rookie of the year. American Rookie of the Year so far. Who do you guys have? Let's start with Matt.
We're not talking pitching. You got pitching next.
Oh, we're going to pitching. Oh, did I have it next? Okay, we can go Cy Young first. American League Cy Young.
I'll go first because mine's a little different.
Okay.
I'm going off WAR here. I don't like. I think WAR messes with closers sometimes. I'm gonna go with Bautista with Baltimore.
Nice.
And here's why, because if you look at one-run games, and if you shifted Baltimore's record, if they lost one-run games, they would move into third place in the AL East. I know Bautista he's blown 5, but those were all like one-run games, and a couple of them I think were with runners with a runner on third. But if you're talking just stats, he's low ones ERA, great WHIP. But then his strikeouts are double his innings pitched. He's more or less a sure thing when he comes in on the ninth when it's a clean inning, and he does well with inherited runners as well. So this is a team context one, and we talk about Baltimore's rise to being second place in the AL East and still chasing Tampa. I think it's their bullpen that is doing it. You know, a shout out to Cano too for Aaron here. I know he has Cano on his team, but yeah, if they come in,
water, man.
What's that?
He's taking on water. He's going to have to adjust back. They've adjusted what he's done, and he's given up a lot of hits and stuff.
Yeah, but still, just in the broader context, if they're winning a game,
you're right. Your bullpen is
winning a game in the 7th inning. You know that the probability is in the 80s or 90s 100%. That they're going to win that game.
No, I agree.
Aaron, who's your Cy Young?
So for me, it's Shane McClanahan. 11 wins, sub 2.5 ERA, which is almost 2 runs better than the current league average, on the best team in the American League. Everything from skill, I'm a big skills person. So, that kind of skills in terms of strikeouts and limiting walks and that kind of ERA and the 11 wins. I think I was going to have Bautista second. Matt kind of beat me to the punch there. I love that call out. I think I read an article the other day in terms of the number of strikeouts he's had in the last calendar year. Not to mention what he's done at the end of games for the Orioles. I think would be very deserving of that. And then I have Kevin Gausman and Framber tied for third.
Westberg just got promoted, by the way.
Yeah, I saw he wasn't playing today. I was hoping it was that and not an injury.
I was hoping it was an injury, but Doug, you're up.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys live your kind of fantasy baseball, real baseball kind of fandom on this, but what I oftentimes do is that when I trade away a player that I had for a while and they excel, I watch them obsessively just to kind of it's like a masochistic thing that I do to myself where I just go, oh my God, these stats belong on my team right now. And during the offseason, Matt played me like he knows me too well, man. I realized that I got a little manipulated, and he knows how to do it. He sent me articles about Lodolo on the Reds, saying that he was going to be, the next Randy Johnson, and he's just like, oh man, you better read this article. I don't know, I just stumbled across it. Maybe you're interested. Anyway, it ended up I traded Gausman for Lodolo, and Matt flipped him immediately for someone else because he doesn't have a need for high-end starting pitching. But anyway, I watched that guy, and he's had some bad games, right? His numbers aren't that good overall, but what I see him capable of doing for the rest of the season is just dominating. I mean, he can just get the swings and misses in a game. Watching a game, not looking at stats, and just watching people look silly against him. I can just I could see him dominating the rest of the season, and I've probably watched him more than any AL starter, just because, again, I like to hurt myself for trading people away. So that's my pick for AL Cy Young.
That's funny. I don't love any of these guys, to be honest. I have Framber Valdez as my 1, Joe Ryan 2, and Garrett Cole 3. What I do like about Valdez is I think that the perception was that he was going to really not be as effective this season because of the shift rule and because he's so ground ball heavy. So he's still 57.2% ground ball. Last season, he was in the mid 60s. So more ground balls were supposed to mean more hits coming into the season, but he's adjusted. and he's been phenomenal. So he's my pick. 7-5 with the 2.27 ERA, but he's also thrown 99 innings. To me, that matters, the number of innings. And then Joe Ryan, I don't love either, but he's third in Fangraphs WAR. And then Garrett Cole. I will push back on McClanahan, Aaron, a bit. A 90% left on base rate is super high. And to me, that can be indicative of striking a ton of guys out, but it also can be indicative of some luck. And his and I know we're not huge X-Stat fans, but his expected ERA is 3.77 and his xFIP is 3.74. And so, of course, would I love to have McClanahan on my team? Absolutely. I think he's a top 10 starter, top 5 starter in the AL, but I don't know that if he remains healthy, he will maintain the stats he's put up. Also, wins, I think wins are a consideration, but they mean less than they used to. At least from my perspective.
What's the update on his injury?
I don't know. I think, wasn't it a non-arm injury though? It's like
a back injury, huh?
Back tightness.
Yep. Which is funny because you think back, and nowadays it's like, oh, thank goodness it's not the elbow or the shoulder. But like back isn't good either. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. I do think that guys like Luis Castillo and Shohei Ohtani and some of the more Garrett Cole, the guys that we're used to seeing on these lists, I think those guys will probably rise to the top in the end, in my opinion at least, but it's been interesting thus far. National League Cy Young. Matt, why don't you get us started with that?
NL Cy Young. Well, somebody else go first. I went first.
I'll go.
All right.
Yeah, so I think for me, Zach Allen would be my choice. Again, just skills. I mean, his walks per 9 is 1.8. We've talked a little bit about the Diamondbacks and what they're doing and competing in the NL West, and I just think he's been tremendous for them leading that team. Their rotation is not, their 4-5s are not super exciting and not super reliable, but he's just been a rock for them and has been very, very consistent. And I think for me, second would be Kershaw. He's made every single start this year, has been his, kind of post-peak vintage self. And then I think Marcus Stroman would be my third. We talked a little bit about the art of pitching coming back in our last episode with Matt and Tino and I. Mm-hmm. I think he's someone who doesn't strike a lot of people out, but just has a lot of pitches, has good command, gets ground ball when he needs it. He really competes on the mound. He has kind of a different persona and a different aggression, which I enjoy. And he's been just fairly fantastic for the Cubs. So I think he deserves a mention as well for me. So those are 3 guys I put out.
Awesome. Doug.
Yeah, this is the one category that I actually came to the podcast for, really, if you want to be serious. That I got NL Cy Young lock of the week on this one is Blake Snell. He I don't know if you guys realized he figured something out. I think in late May. Usually, I don't know who these baseball players are. They're probably like really focused on their diet and their training.
He's not.
But when I look at Blake Snell, I look at someone that's like in therapy quite a bit, and like someone that's very much in his head, and he struggles with a lot of demons out there on the mound. You just watch him, and he looks like a mess, which I love. I love Blake Snell. But anyway, he figured something out about 5 starts ago, and normally it takes him at least 3/4 of the season to figure stuff out and then to turn it on. And so the fact that he figured it out in late May means that he has enough time to dominate for the rest of the year and easily walk away with the NL Cy Young. So that's a lock right there, just to let you guys know.
Okay.
Oh, man, you're awesome.
So Blake Snell, I haven't brought it up yet.
Just keep scrolling down. You'll find him. Just keep going.
His issue has always been the pitch mix. Right, he's always wanted to throw a changeup.
I thought it was not throwing strikes was his issue.
Yes, that's part of it. But a lot of the fastball and the curveball have always been incredible, like plus to double plus pitches. and he's thrown his changeup much, much more than anyone has ever really wanted him to throw it. And so I'm trying to look up the numbers right now. My thought was maybe he was throwing. So he's throwing, it goes the opposite of what I said. So he's throwing his changeup 17% of the time. This is at least based on Fangraphs. I don't trust Fangraphs pitch evaluation as much as Savant, but he's throwing his slider, curveball, and changeup almost equally, and his fastball 54% of the time. Hold on, let me bring up and then his other. So this year he's throwing. Yep, that's what Savant has. So he's throwing his changeup a lot more, about 11% more than last year. Curveball usage is the same. Slider usage is down about 10%, and then fastball usage is the same. So he's exchanged 10% slider for like 10% more changeup. So pitch mix, I think, has a lot to do with it with him. But I want him to succeed. He's a fun one.
Yeah.
I don't know if his Cy Young Award when he won it with Tampa was deserved necessarily, and he strikes me as such a five and dive guy, but he's definitely fun. Matt, who is your National League Cy Young?
My NL Cy Young, I'm going to stick with Stroman. I'll forgive him for today. You have the long flight. It's different atmosphere over there.
A blister.
Yeah, a blister. He had a tough outing today, but yeah, he's consistently going into 7 or 8 innings. He's that workhorse. I love his passion. I love his character outside of MLB, or kind of within the spectrum of supporting players of color. Yeah, he's just the Cy Young spokesman for me. Yeah, I like him a lot. I wonder how many years does he have left with the Cubs? He signed 2 years.
He signed through next year, and there's speculation that he wants an extension, or there was some sort of Twitter nonsense that he had said something, but he's trying to get the Cubs to extend him.
Well, the Cubs trade him though.
Maybe he's going to be a free agent this year. I don't remember.
25.
I know it's in the offing. It's an issue.
The Cubs could get tons for him.
He has an opt out at the end of this year, but he is a free agent technically in 25. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back. Keep going, Doug. I wanted to hear it.
Which is weird. I don't drink beer. I only drink beer for social anxiety reasons. It's not like a pleasurable thing for me.
That's funny.
Just kidding.
Maybe the kids thought you were socially anxious and needed a beer.
They're like, he's way more chill with
right?
a few beers.
Matt, do you have anything else to add with NL Cy Young?
Nope.
Okay. I also had Stroman. Aaron, I had the same top 3 as you did. Stroman is 1, Gallen is 2, Kershaw is 3 for me. I think that it's super, as you said, it's super fun to watch vintage Kershaw. I think we're watching such an incredible talent every 5 days, and we kind of take him for granted, but I can't think of anybody like him in my lifetime, and I don't know if we will see another one quite like him. Gallen is there. His stats speak for himself. I don't love him as a pitcher necessarily, but he's performed incredibly well over the last couple of years, so it's hard to deny. Stroman is one that I think is interesting that we should have seen coming, given the rules changes, because he's been such a ground ball heavy pitcher. And that I think that he's always been on the cusp of being elite for me. So I don't know. I'm a huge fan, as Matt said, I'm a huge fan of Marcus Stroman. I just think he's a lot of fun, and he does have some regression in his BABIP coming. It's 235 right now. I think that's going to go way up, but he's fun to watch. He's an artist on the mound.
Hey, Tino, do you have his K-9 available? Because that was always my problem with that dude all these years, is that he just never struck anyone out. He always had a good solid ERA, but
sure.
I think he's striking people out this year, right?
Yeah, it's 7.5.
Okay.
7.57 is the K/9. I think that I think he's locating better. And as I've said, I think I don't know. I think he's locating better, and I think that we, as much as I'm not a big Dansby Swanson fan, I'm guessing that Dansby Swanson has also made quite a difference in the defense behind him as well. Anything else with pitching from you guys, AL and NL Cy Young?
No.
I'm surprised that no one else loves Blake Snell as much as I do, though. That's just weird.
Right?
Oh, I like him.
Let's
He's a
run
Seattle product too.
Who's your biggest surprise in the AL pitching wise, and who's your favorite pitcher in the AL? Let's start with Aaron.
My biggest surprise in the AL.
Uh-huh.
I'm surprised. I've been surprised how good Evaldi has been, and I've been honestly surprised at how bad the Rays bullpen has been. I really wasn't a Jason Madden believer. As we've already noted, the off the field stuff bothers me, but I thought he would be figured out. So those are a couple of things that stood out. I thought, I'm sure you'll correct me, but I thought Castillo would be better than he's been. I think he's been fine, but I really thought he was going to ascend. So those are maybe not some positive surprises, but Evaldi, Castillo surprised me, and I think the Rays, and from bullpen perspective, surprised me. They kind of been the antithesis of the Orioles, as Matt said. They've been so good.
Who's your favorite American League pitcher?
Favorite American League pitcher? Well, it's not Clark Schmidt. I can tell you that much. Nice. I was telling someone the other day. I was like, I think it was Patrick. I was like, I can't cut the guy and I can't start the guy. And we're in this weird limbo. It's like we can't decide if we're going to break up or stay together. It's like, why? I don't know. Anyway,
I'll give you a draft pick for him.
Yeah. I mean, I genuinely like him. Tino sent me this amazing breakdown of his start against Seattle. And I think, command is something that, command wavers from start to start. But I think for him, it's really important. But he's pitched really well against some really good teams lately, and I haven't started him for any of it. So, yeah, I think, we've already talked about Bautista, but I think he's probably my favorite pitcher in the American League right now.
Really?
I love, a guy that just slams the door like that, and a true shutdown closer. It's more and more rare in the game. I'm all for leverage and matchups and getting the most out of it. I kind of love the gamesmanship of that, but just to have that capital C closer, I think he's. I'll go with him as my favorite American League pitcher.
If I can, two comments. I think with Schmidt. So from a pitch usage standpoint, it's sweeper, sinker, cutter, curveball are all about 20% or above. And just thinking about it and having watched, those are all pitches that, with the exception of the cutter, that are sinking, right? And so eye level, if a hitter can focus on one band of eye level, it makes it easier to hit. And so, but I know his four-seamer quality-wise is so poor that they don't really want him throwing it. But I think that's the biggest thing, is you can have quality pitches, but if they're all going to be low in the zone and the hitter can focus on pitches low in the zone, it kind of takes away some of the effectiveness. And that's what I saw too. So everything he has is diving down, whereas the modern mix is four-seam up, slider down. Just that's a quick comment on Schmidt. And then Castillo, so I watch him pitch to pitch, and I've said to Matt, he's a very good pitcher when he's not locating, and he's a Cy Young candidate when he is locating. And it's as simple as that. I think that he's got such incredible stuff every start, and it's just a matter of location, I think, command with him as to whether he's elite or not. Who's next? Matt, your surprise American League pitcher and your favorite American League pitcher.
I'm going to go 2-1 here, and I'm going to go homer for the fastballs, my team, because I haven't done it yet. So keeping track. So mine is going to be Tyler Wells. And if I tell you that he's given up 18 home runs so far this year, you would think he'd be tanking.
They're all solo, right?
All solo. Yeah. But what makes him fun to watch is he hates giving up walks. And after I have a lot of players like Cabrera being one of them, he's on DL now, who has great stuff, but just kind of loses it sometimes. It was just so nice to see somebody say, screw it, I'm just going to throw it over. If you're going to hit a home run, that's fine. Nobody's on base. So it's interesting. He's given up 18 home runs, but he has the best whip in the AL. He locates. What's improved this year is his strikeouts. Before he wasn't much of a strikeout pitcher. He's getting tons of swing and misses this year. And he has as many strikeouts as innings pitched. And he's pitching in a tough division in the AL East. He takes advantage of he's a fly ball pitcher. Obviously, he takes advantage of left field now in Baltimore. But I think he's just the leader of that rotation. He's not superstar pitcher, but he's just fun to watch because he always seems to be in control. I do like these kind of mixing in. I've kind of moved more towards Doug's strategy because he's won a lot. He prefers strikeout pitchers. But I like to, now that I'm trying to collect more strikeout pitchers, I like having these finesse pitchers mixed in. And they're going to kind of balance out that whip. So yeah, I've watched all his starts, and even when he does poorly, when he gives up 3 home runs, he's still going to go 6 innings and give up 3 runs, or not kill you by giving up 9 runs in a game.
Is not to be a wet blanket, but his BABIP is 191 right now.
Yeah.
So I would expect a bit of regression at some point in time from him.
Was he your surprise or your favorite?
He's both.
Both.
He's my surprise
awesome.
and favorite.
Yeah, I love it. And I think for me, he's been a surprise too. And you offered, you and I don't think it was an offer, but you like, hey, you're interested. He's a player I was on last year just because this stuff and the command popped and and I kind of backed away. But yeah, he's surprising with how well he's done. And I know that there is some potential regression in terms of the home run rate and his low walk rate and things like that. But yeah, it's a great call out.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that, I totally dig the Orioles starting rotation. Actually, the bullpen too. I like their bullpen last year, but it seems like there's a different outside of Batista. There's a whole different crew this year in the middle relief. So I liked them last year. I liked them this year, but the starting rotation is great. Wells is fun to watch. I'm glad that Matt has him on his team. Matt drafted Bradish, right, and dropped him, and I picked him up just off the fact that you picked him with a fairly like a medium round pick in the draft, and I go, oh, he must be good. So anyway, I have him now, and I love him too. He's great. He's doing good. So the Orioles are a fun team to watch. I like their starters. Also, the same thing. I feel the same way about the Twins starters. Joe Ryan, man, I hope that he wins the Cy Young. I think that would be awesome if he did. I like the Twins, and I love their rotation. I love Sonny Gray is a fun pitcher to watch. He's intense, and he just, every pitch is like the last pitch of his life or something. So love watching the Twins. Sonny Gray, what's his name? Ober on the Twins.
Daily Ober, yeah.
Yeah, he's super fun to watch too. And then Joe Ryan. So yeah, Twins and Orioles.
Duran coming out of the pen too.
What's that?
Duran coming out of the pen for them is always a great watch.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, these teams with that are known to be high on analytics, starting with Baltimore. It is interesting. You were talking about Baltimore's offense. I wonder if the central piece of their system for pitching is don't nibble, right? And that's what sent G-Rod down. They were getting frustrated with G-Rod nibbling, and not being able to hit his spots. But when Bradish does well, he's hitting his spots, and he's tough to beat.
Yep,
he's got a great.
I love what you said about them churning their bullpen outside of the closer, because I think the command is the thing that wavers from year to year. And so the guys that really pop up and are dominant one year may be off the next year just because their command is off just a little bit. And Tino's done a good job of highlighting how important command is. But yeah, they weren't afraid to shift to Cano, to shift to Obama, to shift to CNL Perez. And they didn't necessarily just stick with the guys that were good last year. They go with the guys that are performing this year. And you look at the opposite, like the Dodgers, they try to just run it back with the same group. Yeah. And outside of Phillips, they've regressed in a big way, and the Dodgers haven't adjusted. They keep putting Vesha in the spots, and he's not performing. They keep putting Almonte in the spot, he's not performing, and they're not making adjustments. Whereas I think I really credit the Orioles of, again, they're going with what the data this year and the performance right now is telling them, and they're putting the best guys in the leverage spots and letting them elevate. I really appreciate that. And I think
they've been gutsy the last year and a half or so. Didn't they trade Lopez last year? Right, and
they did.
It was a huge.
But I think they knew what they had in Bautista too.
Right. Doug, do you have a favorite pitcher?
Yeah, I think that I kind of touched on that a little bit. I don't want to have my favorite pitcher be someone that, you know, I actually have in fantasy baseball. On that, I want to, like, you know, I have a lot of Dodgers on my team. I have too much Dodger. I'm a Dodger fan, and I definitely want to temper that and not want to, like, you know, shit where I eat, I guess. I don't know, for lack of a better phrase on that, but I don't want to love my players too much. And so I do enjoy the Twins when they win, and I don't own any of them, so it kind of works out really well for me that anytime the Twins are playing, I usually enjoy the starting pitcher that they have out on the mound.
Got it. So on that note, I'll go completely the opposite direction and say that Bryce Miller is my favorite pitcher in the American League. I've just from the swagger to the fastball shape. I think it is a part smoke and mirrors right now. He needs to be better with his secondaries, but he's my favorite pitcher to watch right now. He's must-see TV for me. And then I have Brian Wu and Taj Bradley as 2 and 3. Wu is maybe the better pitcher to Bryce Miller, in part because he throws a sinker at the same velocity as his four-seamer, and it's hard to differentiate at times. And then Taj Bradley is awesome. Super fun to watch. He's probably the most talented starting pitching prospect for me in the American League, even above G-Rod at this point, given what I've seen. And then biggest surprises, Sonny Gray, as you said, he's been washed up probably 6 times according to everybody, and he's still chugging along. I think we expected progression from Zach Eflin going to Tampa because of the Tampa organization and what they do with pitching. I don't know if I expected 9-3 with a 3.35 ERA, but he's been great. I don't have anything negative to say about him, and it's been a bit of a surprise. And then Jose Barrios coming back to life has been a surprise as well, because I think everybody kind of had buried him, thrown dirt on him heading into the season. Aaron, biggest surprise National League, and then favorite pitcher National League.
Yeah, surprises for me from a fantasy perspective, Bryce Elder.
Yep.
And what he's done for the Braves, with Fried and Wright being down. He was someone I couldn't run far enough away from after his first couple of starts, right. Looking at stuff, velocity, and he's just continuing to put up numbers. And again, everything says it's going to fall apart, but it's just shocking. And I think transitioning to a surprise / favorite, Keller for me is being here in PA, and then just seeing how hard Mitch Keller struggled early on in his career, how many times people, as you said, borrow your phrase, wanted to throw dirt on him. Mm-hmm. We saw the velocity bump, we saw Fitz and Sparks this year, but he's really turned into something even I didn't expect. Someone, in terms of his pitch mix and his dominance, consistency, someone who does get strikeouts. Last year, he also offered a little bit of ratio help, but this year it's strikeouts and ratios and some wins when the Pirates are playing better. And I think, my favorite, to transition fully to favorite, it's Hunter Green. I'll let Matt talk about him. He rosters him in our league. But I've, been fully aboard the Reds train this year so far, and I've seen a lot of Hunter Green, and he's my favorite watch in the National League right now.
Matt.
For NL, it'll be Alex Cobb. I like how San Francisco brings in these vets, and they do well in that park. He's been dependable. His whip is a little high lately, but he's 5-2, 3.3 ERA. Pretty much strikeouts, 1 strikeout per inning. He's just been a solid guy. I think he's been I think what's hurt his regression a little bit. He's been hurt, correct? Didn't
Yeah.
he have a hip issue?
Off and on. He's kind of hurt off and on all the time.
Yeah, but I kind of like these surprise, like Tyler Anderson last year, these surprise solid starters that could balance out your rotation if you're taking risks with young guys, and he's that type of player. It's fun to watch as well because he's a finesse pitcher that can get some swing and miss just on finesse, not necessarily on skill alone.
Cobb is so you guys know I roster Cobb, and a lot of his numbers are really similar last year to this year. The 1.3+ whip is a little bit difficult to swallow. And I keep hoping for that to come down because he runs these like super high. His BABIP this year is 349, tons of ground balls, and he's always wriggling out of trouble. But he is, to me, one of those guys back end rotation that is worth having in fantasy.
He's one of those players when I played you, I think we've played each other twice already. But when you're watching your opponent and their pitcher has the bases loaded and you say, oh, okay, I got it. They're whipping and their ERA is screwed. I'm going to win this week. And then all of a sudden he's out of it. No runs.
He get on the flip side, he's a heart attack waiting to happen for me. So my surprises are Justin Steele, Mitch Keller, and Bryce Elder. Aaron, I think we probably were sharing the same OneNote. We're putting this together.
No, we don't. We really weren't.
I know. Keller is, I think to your point, Keller was a first-round pick in 2014. And that was still when they were teaching two-seamer in Pittsburgh. And he had no identity. And they knew he had a golden arm, but they weren't teaching him the right things. They're always tweaking his pitch mix and his pitches. And I think that we saw that all the way. We've seen that throughout his career. So it is really, I think, cool to see him succeeding in the way that he has. It's a good story. Bryce Elder, to your point, is freaking so smoke and mirrors to me. I think we're going to see him like absolutely implode at some point in time. He's got a 85.3 left on base percentage. His expected stats are like 1.3 runs above his actual ERA, but it's still a surprise, and he still put up a 2.40. And then Justin Steele has been really good. The cool thing about Steele is that in my mind, he doesn't have a plus pitch, maybe his slider, but he's exclusive fastball slider from the left side and has been able to succeed as much as he has. And then favorite pitchers, it's just the same thing you guys have said. Hunter Green is by far my favorite American League pitcher, I think. I put Yuri Perez on there too. He's been a lot of fun to watch. Alex Cobb is on my list, and Marcus Stroman are on my list as well. So let's move to hitting if we can. American League Rookie of the Year. Doug, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I was thinking that someone was going to start on American League Rookie of the Year, so I can get the name right. But it's the guy from the Red Sox, right? Yoshida. Is that his name?
Yoshida.
Yes, nailed it. Yeah, he's going to win American League Cy Young just because I think with the counting stats that he's going to put up, hitting in the middle of the Red Sox order, which is fine. But I do have to talk about Esty Ruiz on the A's, which is he's the only guy. I mean, it's amazing when there's one guy on a team that's worth watching. I mean, he's the only actual Major League Baseball player I feel like that's on the Oakland A's right now, and it's a throwback. I mean, every time he gets on base, he's looking to steal, and like every pitch when he is on base, he's looking to steal. It's not like he's waiting for a good count or anything. He'll steal on the first pitch. That guy is exciting, and I love him. And what he's at if he's at 39, I believe, stolen bases right now. The only person that's given Acuna a run for his money on the stolen base front on that for the in Major League Baseball. So the dude's a stud. He's fun to watch. He's the only guy on the A's that's worth watching. And anyway, I think that, if it wasn't for like a 29-year-old Rookie of the Year candidate in the AL, I think that guy would run away with it, and he's also probably one of my favorite players. Just I've always loved speed. I grew up watching baseball in the '80s, and I played RBI baseball, and I always wanted to have the Cardinals. Right, you had to have Tommy Herr, but then you also got you got Willie McGee, you got Vince Coleman. Right, that's a fun team to play.
Smith,
yeah. So anyway, Estuary Ruiz is my dark horse AL Rookie of the Year.
That's awesome.
How many steals do you see him having by the end of the year?
72.
Woo!
72.
That was quick too. Nice. How about you, Aaron? Who's your AL Rookie of the Year?
I'm gonna go with Cano. He's considered a rookie, and again, I think what he's done for that bullpen thus far, and you guys have outlined what they've done in one-run games so far. And there's no other American League here that I thought. So yeah, I would give it to him for thus far.
Cool. And how about you, Matt?
Yeah, a player we've talked a lot on our pod about, just as far as being a top 10 third baseman, but never being a top 5, and he's kind of fulfilling that. So Josh Young, right in the heart of that Texas lineup that I don't want any of my starting pitchers to pitch to. Totally. And he protects he has Simeon and Lowe and Seager in front of him. He knocks him in. He's going to be that third baseman that's going to hit 25 knocks a year, hit 270, and be that reliable third baseman. I don't think he'll ever be that standout, like what De La Cruz could be at third base, like that MVP. But he's just that reliable. He hits it hard. His K rate is down. What I kind of regret trading him. I traded him to Seoul in the off season. His K rate is down to 26%. 26, really high last year off his shoulder injury. So it's still pretty decent. He still doesn't walk. That may come, but he's a very aggressive hitter. He is 82% percentile exit velocity for average. He doesn't really hit the max exit velocity. He's at 55%, but yeah, just that solid third baseman. And I think because of the context of Texas, I would put my Vegas money on him winning Rookie of the Year.
I agree. I've got Josh Young so far as my American League Rookie of the Year. Same boat as you. I don't love him. I think he's a 260 hitter, 20 to 25 home runs perennially, probably an 80 to 90 RBI sort of guy. Valuable major league wise, valuable fantasy, obviously, to the guy who rostered Yohan Moncada for the last 5 years, but kind of boring to me. Number 2, I actually have Ryan Noda, the Rule 5 pickup by the A's out of the Dodgers organization. So far, he has 8 homers, but he's running an 18.3% walk rate and a 387 OBP. So he's got an 800 OPS at this point in time. And I think that's a value, and that's in line with his minor league numbers. Third, I have Gunnar Henderson. We've seen him really take off in the last couple of weeks. He has 11 homers, 38 runs. He's still been taking walks despite his low average. So his OBP is at 346. But by the end of the year, I believe, and this is not because I roster him, I think Anthony Volpe will be the AL Rookie of the Year. Similar to the conversation we had about Julio, he's produced despite the press, right? Despite people talking about having him sent down. From a fantasy perspective, if we're 45% into the season so far, he has 10 homers and 15 steals, right? So if he's ever elevated in the lineup, you'll see his runs and RBIs go up. But he's gonna end the season with 20 home runs and 30 steals in all likelihood, because I think he's gonna do nothing but get better. And to me, that will show on paper better than the other rookies. I have Gunnar second. I think Gunnar is as realistic of an AL Rookie of the Year as Volpe, and then I have Yoshida at third.
I'm glad you brought up Volpe, because I think that when we did the beginning of the year podcast, he was our unanimous choice for AL Rookie of the Year. And so someone had to at least mention him, I think, at the halfway point. So thank you for doing that.
He's struggled, right? He's got a 30.6% K rate, and he's definitely, I think his struggles are in his head a bit as far as if you watch him at bat to at bat. But if we're talking, especially if we're talking fantasy, and runs or excuse me, home runs and steals are kind of the two stats that, at least for me, I tend to focus on first. That obviously OPS. I think that they're there, right? It's hard to ignore the 10 homers and 15 steals at short. Do we bother? Actually, we do bother. National League Rookie of the Year. I assume all of us currently have Corbin Carroll. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the real question: who will be the NL Rookie of the Year end of season? Will it still be Corbin Carroll? We'll start with Matt.
Yes.
I'm obviously there's Elly De La Cruz is in the back of the room, kind of looking over this whole conversation.
I think Elly, if he continues, he have a shot. We have to see how pitchers are going to adjust to him now. But if Arizona was usual Arizona, Elly would have a better shot. But now that Arizona's leading the West and they just won again today, it's going to be tough to take him off the lead there, especially if he continues. And I don't see any indication in the stats or the metrics that are going to show that he's going to regress in any major way.
Let me just point out real quick that the people that bet on Arizona players this year have won big time so far in the first half, man. I didn't see it coming. I saw people that were, Matt with Marte on that. I don't know. I thought that was falling on that. I mean, Carroll, yeah, we all kind of saw that coming. I think you drafted him like 5 years ago with your first pick. So you definitely earned that spot to have him on your roster. But yeah, with Gurriel and Gallen, and it's just they're actually a fun team to watch, and they haven't been for years and years. So I didn't see that coming, and kudos for all the people that are reaping the benefits of having Diamondbacks on their teams.
Mm-hmm. I would say with Marte, I think the batted ball metrics were always there, and he was just hurt a lot. And if he was ever to have a healthy season, I think Marte was going to be a great fantasy second baseman, and it's just he's put it all together and not gotten hurt this year.
And they're resting him a lot, and they're not being aggressive with the base running either.
Right.
It's mainly been hamstring issues for
his
him.
bat's too valuable. I'm going to ask you, Aaron, and then I'll answer the question as well. Do you believe there's any chance that Elly De La Cruz is the Rookie of the Year? I ask in part because you roster him, but also because you probably watched him the most out of all of us.
I think he's probably got too much ground to make up from a statistical standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Carroll's posting, MVP type numbers, so he's obviously going to be Rookie of the Year. I don't think there's any argument with that. The player I was wanting to highlight in this may be recency bias. It was Matt McLain.
Mm-hmm.
It's also informed by the number of Reds games that I've been watching. I think we're all influenced. I think we probably admit by what we watch, right? And what we see with our own eyes. And it just feels like Matt McLain is in the middle of every rally, every comeback, every clutch hit. I mean, and today, again, recency, he was 4 for 5 with 3 doubles, 2 runs and 5 RBIs, and batting number 2 every single day. I love that the manager there, the skipper, he puts the rookies in the lineup spots where they deserve to be and doesn't bury them in order like some other managers do. And McLean's batted second basically since he came up. He plays second and short. So I know he's not going to get as much attention as even maybe as Aaron's teammate, but I think what he's done in some gets overlooked, and I just think he deserves to be called out, but from what he's doing both fantasy wise and for the Reds.
It's cool that he's short stature, 5'8", and he fits kind of the second base profile pretty well. And thanks to Elly.
Me by surprise. I thought he was just like a glove first bat to ball, but he has some pop, and he can turn and burn, and defensively he's really, really solid. And I think and he and Elly are interchangeable at short, and they got a great chemistry. And so I just think he could just continue to perform And I know Carroll deservedly, Chris Welch's son there, he gets all the attention as well as he should. I mean, he's in the MVP running. What are you going to say? But yeah, I just think McLean has been really, really good and exceeded my expectations. And yeah, but yeah, I think Elly has too much ground to make up.
Cincinnati is going to be so fun to watch with
Oh,
Marte
they're a
coming up
blast, man.
and their
Barry Larkin
pitchers.
on the call, and they're a blast.
I've got a couple of comments. One question. Do you guys know who the number 2 Fangraphs WAR rookie is this year? National League.
No.
Guesses. It's Patrick Bailey, which I found just super random. But I think with McLean, I was low man on McLean when Matt and I were talking about McLean on the Monos pod. I trashed him. I'm still not a believer. 6.6% walk rate. He's got a 417 BABIP right now. So I think a lot of what he's doing is smoke and mirrors. I think it's fun. And I think he's a service to me. He's a strong offensive utility player ultimately in that organization, but he's been fun thus far. I will make the argument that I think De La Cruz comes close to Carroll this season. I don't think it's going to be anything having to do with Carroll not performing. I think Carroll is going to be 30-30 or 30-40 even. But I think De La Cruz gets to likely 25 home runs and close to 40 steals.
Wow.
And if he does that, you're talking home run and steal wise, you're talking about comparable numbers. And if De La Cruz keeps hitting as many balls on the ground as he does, his average is going to be a lot higher, I think, than what we have come to expect for him, given his hit tool. So if he has a near 300 average, he's got, homers and steals that are not quite up to Carroll, but are close. And I think that he might get semi-close. And he's playing shortstop, right? Or even third base. To me, that position is worth something as well. I don't think that De La Cruz will win the Rookie of the Year, but I think the chances of him winning it are actually larger than we're willing to, I think, initially give him credit for. I think that that's no knock with Carroll. I think Carroll's going to be 30 homers and 40 steals and 110 runs and 80 RBIs. I think he's a generational talent, but Elly does have that in his bat, I think, to get close. I just thought a fun question.
In a normal year, that would be an argument, but I think that with Carroll and then also we were talking about team context before, with the Diamondbacks doing what they're doing this year, it's just it's just going to happen. I mean, the
the Reds are doing the same thing though.
Yeah, the
Reds are actually doing the same thing from a standing standpoint. They're leading the AL Central. They're 41-37. Diamondbacks have a better record overall, but both are leading their divisions. And I think the Reds, at least right now, captured the imagination of the baseball fan because of the excitement predominantly around De La Cruz. So I don't know. Again, I don't think I wouldn't bet on De La Cruz if it was even money, but I do think that there's a non-zero chance that he does win. I think he's been that special up till now. I think to Matt's point, my one worry about him is major league pitchers are going to find holes in his bat. And that I think because of the long levers and some of the swing and miss concerns in the minor leagues, I do worry about that a bit. But so far, it's been so fun to see him in the City Connect. Actually, let me ask you guys: do you have a favorite City Connect uniform? Matt,
I'm thinking.
Okay, Aaron.
I don't have a favorite. I love the black and gold ones that came out this week. I really like the Nationals ones. Those are two that stand out for me right now. But I will say the Reds black and red that he was wearing the other day, he was wearing that uniform.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Doug?
Man, I'm sorry. When people start talking about fashion, I think that when
here goes
when there's an argument right now in society about drag queens.
Yeah.
And I think that some people are talking about drag queens where they're talking about family values. But I think that other people, when they talk about drag queens, they like talking about fashion. They like talking about runway models. They like talking about dressing up and feeling a certain way.
Yep.
So anyway, I just find that when people start talking about fashion, that it's too contentious of an issue. And so the fact that you brought that up, I would just like to tactfully decline comment. Thank you.
You got it. What about you, Matt?
I go with my Baltimore bias. I like the colors around the collar. It's really cool. I like what they've done there. But Cincinnati is pretty awesome. It's tough to argue against Cincinnati.
The 16-year-old me would have 100% said the Chicago White Sox South Side City Connect uniforms with the black with the pinstripe. Old me, 46-year-old me says it was interesting because the Baltimore uniform came out on Twitter, right? The preview, and everyone's like, "That's the most boring thing ever." And they were comparing it to the Great Britain uniform in the WBC and how boring it was. And then you see the arm get rolled up a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's what's so cool. Yeah,
and you see the pattern, and especially on a dude that's just rips, right? Like it looks dope. And some of the little details on that Baltimore uniform are sick. So I'd say Baltimore is my favorite, at least of those so far. Mariners too. Mariners look like freaking Metro bus drivers in those uniforms. They're just so bad. The black pants and the blue shirt, and I don't know. I like the jersey itself, but the pants in combination are horrible. Aaron, I know you got to go. Doug and Matt, if you guys want to come back for one more segment, that'd be awesome. All right, we got two categories left. Biggest surprise American League hitter or player. Matt, why don't you get us started?
I'm not ready for that one.
Yeah,
Doug, how about you?
Biggest surprise American League player. Yeah. Let's see. Wander Franco. That was kind of everyone was down on him. I know that he was like, the guy for a while, but it was fun to diss on him. Let's see. Shoot. I don't know, man. That's a tough one. American League. What's going on in the American League?
I would say for me, it's number one is Yandy Diaz. And it's simply he's been able to elevate most of the year, and that was his big thing, right? He hit the ball hard, he got on base, but he didn't hit home runs. This year he has. So that one's a pretty obvious one. Josh Lowe has been insane. And you look at Josh Lowe's numbers this season, I was shocked. I had no clue. 11 homers, 18 steals. He's got an 830 OPS, right? I think of him as probably like a strong side platoon outfielder for the Rays, and he's put up huge numbers. Diaz is 12 home runs, 50 runs, 38 RBIs, 396 on base percentage, and a 906 OPS. So nice. 900 OPS from Yandy Diaz, I did not expect at all. And then
actually, on the flip side of that, I was just thinking about I read about trade targets and Tim Anderson on the White Sox, man. That's a huge surprise. My God, he's been terrible. His slugging is like in the twos right now. It's just unbelievable. I mean, like, I remember at the time when he was young, it was like he got passed around our league. People didn't believe in him. And then at one point, the guy that owned him, when he caught fire, got to keep him and have this great shortstop for years and years. But he seems to have been going right back to where he was before, where he just cannot make contact. And that's a crazy drop.
His arm is hurt, or his shoulder. There's some sort of injury with him. They've moved him to second base, actually, the last couple of games.
Oh, wow.
From fantasy perspective, I think that'd be a gold mine if you got Tim Anderson. He was second base eligible and came back to being old Tim Anderson. But I think he's hurt. He's too young for it to be totally in the tank. He's interesting because his approach is so, I run for the hills when I see approaches like his, which is so swing happy. But he's put up numbers. But I agree. I think it's a bit of a surprise that he's been as shitty as he has been. Yeah. The only other one on my list is Jonah Heim. I thought of Jonah Heim as kind of a like replacement level, fantasy replacement level type catcher. And the reality is he's been outstanding this season.
Team context is going to help with counting stats there too, as well.
For sure.
Any catcher you get for free with an OPS over 800 is gold mine.
Yep.
I need to point out on Heim, that was my target going into the draft on him. So I had Heim. I felt great having him as my starting catcher. And then I don't know, when someone dropped Murphy, and I just happened to have like the top waiver wire pick at the time. So I'm like, oh, I get Murphy, and I can't have two catchers because two catchers, right, Matt, is ridiculous. Right. And so anyway, I dropped Heim, but I was feeling confident having him as a starter. I should have probably kept both and maybe like traded him. But anyway, that guy's solid. And I mean, it just feels like that with Texas, you can't go wrong with the Rangers this year on offense. My God.
There wasn't, and with Heim, there wasn't a lot of, I'm trying to think of, so when I see a breakout like this, I think, why didn't I see this? Is there something that I didn't see in my evaluation of the player in the offseason, right? And when I look at his numbers, at least, there wasn't a whole lot other than running a pretty low strikeout rate, right? A sub 20% strikeout rate is interesting, I think. And he hit 16 home runs in 450 plate appearances, but there wasn't anything that said that he was going to be a 25 home run hitter, right? And there wasn't anything in his profile for me. His, Matt, to your chagrin, his BABIP was 249 last year, and it's up to 312. So it's shifted to the mean, but in a positive way. But I didn't see him being like a top catcher coming at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I don't know that there was.
Now, did he come in that same trade with Harris, to Texas for the pitcher for Minor?
He was from Oakland, you mean?
Yeah, I think he was in that trade for Minor.
Mike Minor?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Got a great minor leaguer, and then they got Heim too.
I just remember seeing Jonah Heim's name in MLB The Show like years ago as a random like 16, 18-year-old prospect.
The reason why I wanted him on my team is that they said that he was gonna get flooded with at bats.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like with catcher. I mean, that's all you need, right? Or I mean, it's the best you can hope for. Right. At bat.
Well, once Garver went down for sure.
He's played 67 games.
Yep.
267 potential at bats. That's what you want from a catcher if you're just rostering one.
All right. Biggest surprise in the National League. Do you guys have a name? Do you want me to start?
Yeah, start off,
So my biggest surprise is Geraldo Perdomo. I think he's been totally ridiculous. There was nothing in his profile that said he was going to be an offensive breakout star. He's hitting 297, 401, and an OPS of 859 as a shortstop. He has 5 homers and nine stolen bases, so not a ton of power. But if you have a shortstop with an 850 OPS, I think you can handle the 5 home runs, right? So he's my number one. Number 2 is Sean Murphy. I called him milquetoast in the offseason. I thought he was just another kind of slugging catcher in the mold of a Jonah Heim or a Cal Raleigh or any of the number of catchers. For me, looking at catcher, I'm looking for the guy who's different. I think you can find the waiver wire or replacement level fantasy catcher pretty easily, but finding a catcher that gives you an edge over your competitor is difficult. And I didn't see that with Murphy, even acknowledging the how outstanding the Braves offense is. But he's 286, 383, and a 532 slug. So he's still running a 900 plus OPS and has been outstanding. So he's number 2. And then Orlando Arcia is number 3, the Braves shortstop. 321, 379, 464 slug with 6 home runs. I don't think it's going to last. 8% walk rate and a 390 batting average balls in play. but he's been a huge surprise thus far as well.
Yeah, man. Where's Vaughn Grissom going to play? Is he going to
Never.
get traded? What's going on?
What did you trade for him?
A fourth round 2023 draft pick.
Got it. At least it wasn't, Ken Griffey Jr. or something like that.
Right? Yeah. Matt can give bargains when he wants to.
Right. But yeah, those are some surprises. Jimar Candelario, I wish Aaron was here for that one. Is a bit of a surprise. Are you guys surprised by Luis Arraez at all?
Oh man, I wish I had him. I wish I had him on my team. That's a fun, especially now he's like hit a few home runs over the past week. My God, dude, what more could you ask for?
Well, the big outfield, he could spray the ball all over the place.
Right.
Yeah, he's interesting, and my surprise is going to be Soler. How he's performing. I saw KC. I mean, I saw Miami versus Seattle here, and he's the leader in that dugout too.
For sure.
So yeah, he made a great catch in that game too. That Perez was playing, and then he hit that dinger.
I've been on the Mariners pod. I've been hammering the table for Jorge Soler as a trade target. He's the one realistic target that the Mariners could trade for, who I'd be willing to give up a high level major or minor leaguer for. I just think Soler it's cool because we've seen him kind of like Mitch Keller. We've seen him be labeled as a bust, right? And then we've seen him have this huge 48 homer year and then fall off again. So it's fun for me to see players kind of pick themselves back up off the map and be able to perform in that way. But he's been phenomenal, man. He's 248.
Nice to see a player transcend the ballpark too. So
yes,
when he went to Miami, everybody said, well, he's not going to be what he used to be. And
dude is so big. You saw him in person, 6'4", 240, and he's probably 4% body fat, right? Yeah. Dude is nuts. So 248, 346, 872 OPS. He's got 21 home runs. Yeah, he's been awesome.
What I like about Soler, and I know that we're talking in general, fantasy baseball in general, sure. But I love in leagues that certain managers have certain guys.
Yep.
And in our league, Husky is a Soler guy.
Right.
And no one drafted him. And he just picked him up, I think, after week 2, going oh, yeah, he's my guy. Right. And now it's that's why Husky is I think he's in third in our league right now. It's it's a Soler thing. I mean, it's only so much. It's just a slight difference that puts someone in the winning column on a head-to-head matchup each week.
Yep.
And the fact that he just got Soler for free in week 2, and that was his guy. So of course he was going to pick him up. I wasn't going to pick him up. I don't know him, but Husky does. And so he picked him up, and now Husky's reaping the benefits. I love it. I love it.
Are there any other baseball, general baseball topics that are that you guys want to cover that are on the top of your head right now?
I'll go a couple of surprises.
Okay.
So I'll eat crow at least right now on De La Cruz. I traded De La Cruz in my dynasties, and I traded him here as well to Aaron last year. And I did send Aaron an article. I guess that's part of the. I didn't know I did
it's
that.
Your MO, yes.
Yes.
What'd you get back, Matt? What'd you get back?
A third rounder.
For De La Cruz?
Not enough. Not enough.
Yeah, not enough.
That's a fair trade, Matt.
Right. I admit it.
Wait, you only got a third rounder for De La Cruz?
In Dynasty, I did get yeah. But that was at the start of last year, right when he was coming up. But anyway, I did get Witt and somebody else in a Dynasty league. But anyway, De La Cruz, I still have questions about him as far as his K rate. Nobody's come up with that high a K rate into MLB and succeeded with batting average. So I am going with a batting average strategy this year. So anyway, but I'm perfectly, and I've said this on our minors pod, that I'm perfectly willing to say I messed up because I'm rooting for him. I like him a lot. And then my second one, and Tino's gonna laugh here, but I want to use this as a pivot for a couple of rants. So let me start with a precursor here. He has extremely high BABIP and his batting average is going to regress. But I'm going to mention Nolan Jones for this reason. Nolan Jones is interesting because I was going strictly off stats with him, and I assumed, well, he's Cleveland, takes a lot of pitches, he has power, he hits it hard. The dude's kind of like a Moustakas type of guy because I never really saw him. I just kind of picked him up. And so the biggest surprise is how athletic he is. And you know, the guy, if he wants to, he could run under 30, run under 3 to first, right? Incredible athlete. I had no idea. But why I'm saying this is just kind of my as a fantasy player, kind of my bias towards numbers and that coupled with scouting, right? As far as I should really look at the athleticism of these players, and right now it's lucky he obviously is going to regress with his batting average and other stuff. But he hits the shit out of the ball, and he's a lot faster than I had assumed. Why I'm saying this is because Cleveland traded and cut. Did they cut the guy that in Cincinnati right now, the center fielder, or did they trade him to Cincinnati?
No, Will Benson was a trade.
A trade, yeah. So they traded 2 outstanding athletes who do have swing and miss for their strategy of high contact. And I find it really interesting that the high contact isn't really working out this year. Whereas 2 players that hit the crap out of the ball that have a lot of swing and miss, but have at least Jones has decent eye, are doing well. So I find it interesting. In this season, everybody said, well, the shift and everything, Cleveland's strategy is going to work. But if you're not going to have high EV that can shoot it through those holes, that's not going to work very well. So I like that. I think you mentioned this earlier, Tino, or somebody did that athletes are coming out as kind of the centerpiece of teams now, right? Because you need athletes in the field now. You can't have Moustakas at second base anymore, and you need athletes that could shoot the ball through non-shifts now and hit the crap out of the ball. So I just use that as a segue to mention that.
Two comments. Well, one statement first, that Mookie Betts just led off with the home run off of Hunter Brown in the first at bat of the game. Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit when we were talking about prospects, and then of course Freddie Freeman K's. That to me, so it came up for me. I started looking at it with Kyle Tucker, because I would look at Kyle Tucker and everybody was just, all of the pundits were like, Kyle Tucker is a top 5 guy. Like, I don't understand why he's bottom of the first round. He's better than that. And I looked at his physical numbers, right? His EVs, his speed, watch him a little bit. And I didn't see the explosion from Kyle Tucker that I saw with the other guys that people were wanting him to be ranked over, right? You think about Acuna, and you think about J-Rod, and you think about Witt, and you think about Carroll, and these are like quick twitch, explosive, badass athletes, right? And then you look at Tucker, and he's not that level of an athlete. And you keep going down that list, and you see guys like, unless you're playing a corner position and you're 240 pounds, you need them to have that kind of explosion. And so I started to look at prospects in the same way. And if you don't have that elite explosion or that athleticism, I don't know if your upside is as high as the player who can get the easy 93 mile an hour average EV just because they're swinging the bat, right? They're not even trying. JP Crawford, I think, is a good example of a player that lacks athleticism. And so he doesn't hit for the power that anyone ever expected. And it might have been stereotyping, right? To a certain extent, that you're drafting an African-American player who grew up in Long Beach, California, and you would have expected that player to have some explosiveness. And the reality is his EVs are horrible, right? And it's because he's just not that great of an athlete, but he's smart, and he's still a very good baseball player. So I think your point is well taken, that those sorts of athletes like a Nolan Jones are have a certain type of upside and ability that, we need to be, when we're scouting, especially minor leaguers, we need to be looking for that. We need to be looking for that type of explosiveness. There's a certain baseline level of athleticism that has to be there for the player to be able to to be transcendent. Sometimes it's size, right? Sometimes it's like Aaron Judge, or it's, Yordan Alvarez is not, you wouldn't call him a quick twitch athlete, but he's strong as hell, right? And he's very coordinated. But Fernando Tatis Jr. can run a 18% swinging strike rate and still be a 40-40 threat, because every time he hits the ball, it's 96 miles an hour off the bat. But I love that. And I love the fact that, baseball is, people knock baseball as, not as physical or a different type of sport than, say, basketball or football. But the reality is the best baseball players are still, most of the time, the greatest athletes. I think that's a cool point. Anything else from you guys about this first half of the season? Anything that you want to talk about team-wise, real life, fantasy?
I have a question for Doug, since he always values pitchers and he always has SPs. So what the hell is going on this year with pitching?
I got to pause. All right, Matt, your question.
So I asked this to Tino and Aaron on the last pod. What's going on with pitching? So you always value pitching in fantasy leagues, especially starting pitching. We've had a lot of injuries, a lot of inconsistencies with pitchers. So how would you explain it? Is it the pitch clock?
Yeah. Well, so anyway, we were talking about this a little bit off camera on this, but yeah, it's absolutely the pitch clock. My starting pitching right now, I mean, I think that's kind of why my team, I hate to say this, but is underperforming right now. My starting pitching is terrible. It was good this week, but yeah, that pitch clock is messing up pitchers. I think it's just their timing on this. It feels like, I don't know what the statistics are on this, but there seems like there's a lot of box going on right now. They just seem to be unsettled right now. And in saying that, I think that it's actually the pitch clock is a beautiful, beautiful thing, in that these baseball players, it's kind of like, it goes back to high school, right? That the high school jocks, right? They felt that they were running the show, and they said, you know what? Baseball games are going to be 4 hours. And we go, no. All the other kids at the school go, we don't want it to be 4 hours. We'd love it to be like maybe close to like 3, maybe 2.5. And they said, nope, sorry, it's going to be 4. And then all of a sudden the principal comes in and says, no, guess what? Those jocks are wrong. Or maybe Christian Slater and Heathers comes in and says, nope, those jocks are wrong. They're going to be 2.5 hours. And yeah, we win. So anyway, I love the pitch clock, but yeah, I think that it's still like, it's upturned all the starting pitching stats right now. And I think that it's kind of a little bit like COVID, right? There's like COVID seasons where some people excelled during COVID and some people didn't. I think that probably by next year, everything's going to even out. People are going to understand the pitch clock, and the people that can adjust, and the people that can't. And so we'll know what's going on by the time next year rolls around. But this year, it's a little bit of a clusterfuck, to be sure.
I think the shift rule has also, I think, had a huge impact, whether it's real or psychological or both. Psychologically, as a hitter, used to mess with hitters because you'd see all the fielders on one side of the field and you still knew you couldn't hit it the other way. So I do think that's a portion of it. I also think that the impact that base runners are having on pitchers is pretty big, right? If you can only throw over to first base twice, and you know that there's a higher likelihood that runner is going to take off, that it does, I think, hinder you, right? As a pitcher, knowing that they're probably going to run. So I think you're right that the majority of it is the pitch clock. I think the majority of the injuries are pitch clock related in some ways, but I just think the environment in general is just is much it favors the hitter, obviously much more than it has up to this point.
With the base running, though, real quick on the base running, there should be a stat out there how many times there's been a stolen base and an error on the catcher and the runner moves to third. That seems to just be like off the charts this year. My God. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
If moving forward, is there a type of pitcher that you guys think will thrive or excel in the new environment, right? If we're talking about like at the end of this season, you start scouting and you start thinking about, okay, who or what type of pitcher do I want to target? What is it that what has changed given what you know thus far in 23 for you guys?
What do you think, Matt?
Well, that's why I asked you the question. Initially, I'm still trying to figure out this pitching thing.
Nice.
But
Well,
but
I think these guys are all professionals, and I think that that they're going to figure it out in time. Some people are figuring it out faster than others, but I think that they're all going to figure it out because you know, they're professionals, and this is the new rules, and maybe it took some time. I remember I saw Acuna on the opening day, sorry, and anyway, so they threw over to first base, and he was like questioning the umpire. He's like, "Wait, that was one, right? Do they get to throw over another time?" And he didn't quite know how it worked, and it was opening day of his job,
Right.
and anyway, I think he actually did steal second, but it was just funny on opening day that he was like, wait, how does this actually work? So,
Right.
I mean, baseball, they've been raised on baseball probably since they were 3 years old, and all of a sudden the rules change on them. It's going to take some time for them to develop their style with the new rules. So I think they'll all figure it out in time. I wouldn't change anything as far as who I'm going to target as a starting pitcher. I just think that it's another pandemic situation where you just need to wait it out and everything will be fine in 2024.
I wonder if the art of pitching is a little more important now. And then also, you know, when if and when we get numbers of where pitchers sit consistently with velocity as opposed to what their high end velocity is, because I think because of the pitch clock, it's more about how can you repeat the same pitch over and over again, as opposed to how hard can you throw in that one pitch. I'm just looking at my top 3 Cy Young on my list for this season so far, and I don't have a single. The only pitcher on this list that really throws with premium velocity is Garrett Cole. I've got Stroman, Zach Gallen, and Clayton Kershaw. None of the 3 of those really get above 93, right? And then I've got Framber Valdez, Joe Ryan, and Garrett Cole. And Valdez is like, you know, his trick is that he throws such a heavy sinker and has this beautiful big curveball. And then Joe Ryan's trick is that his fastball shape is like double plus, right? He's got this elite fastball shape. So none of them outside of Cole have that explosive stuff that we always talk about. So I wonder if just looking at that list, there's something there about the pitchers that have, you know, more than 2 pitches, the pitchers who have the ability to really command their stuff. I don't know that I believe that, but it's just something that's very interesting for me to look at. Even the biggest surprise pitchers, Justin Steele, right? Mitch Keller's not about stuff anymore. He's about pitch mix and pitch shape. Bryce Elder, who's been terrible. Sonny Gray, who doesn't have premium velocity anymore. Zach Eflin, Jose Barrios. Like, these are all pitchers that aren't that don't throw 100 miles an hour, right? Yeah. So I wonder, without digging too deep, I wonder if there is something to it in terms of being not just a hard thrower, but a great pitcher.
Yeah.
And whereas
I think that's what happened to Green in his development in the second half last year, right? He learned to take stuff off his hard stuff.
Yep.
And that's
he learned that location was more important than the extra 3 miles an hour.
Yeah, and that's what Perez is doing now, right? Perez could throw over 100, but he's choosing not to, and he could hit his targets.
Right.
And
or even if
Miller too.
I was going to say, watching the Mariners so much, I think about like Bryce Miller and Brian Wu, and I say the same. I've said this to you, Matt, a number of times, where Logan Gilbert, Miller, Wu, Castillo, their success or failure is completely predicated on location, right? Bryce Miller, if he can spot that fastball, is going to shut you down, right? Brian Wu got hit hard in his first start because literally everything was straight down the middle. Luis Castillo is an ace when he locates, and he's good when he doesn't. Logan Gilbert, same thing. So, yeah, I wonder if that is a portion of it. And I wonder, Matt, how much evaluating command is going to become a part of our and pitchability are going to become parts of our evaluation when looking at minor leaguers.
There needs to be a metric, and you started out the podcast with Doug talking about color commentators. One thing I see good color commentators talking about is how often the pitcher is hitting where the catcher's glove is.
Yep.
And I wish there was a metric on that. Ben McDonald does a great job of it for Baltimore, but they're really looking for that. How well are they locating here?
I think that's part of what I when I'm watching the Mariners games, that's part of how I determine that, plus looking at the matchup on Savant, because I can see where the pitch is located. But if I can couple where the pitch is located versus where I visually see the catcher set up before the pitch is thrown, that's part of how I can understand what they intended to do. Fun stuff, man.
Where did Doug go? Did he just?
I hope he's okay. He passed out from the beer and fell backwards, and the computer turned off. That's hilarious. All right, man. We'll call it a day.
Right.
It's good to see you, brother.
All right. Take it easy. Have a good week.
You too, man.